So let me tell you a story about Enron. Enron is a company that didn't use intrinsic motivators, but extrinsic one. Actually, they tried to do both, but people really followed where they were leading, what they were doing. And what they were leading towards was money, and they were using the extrinsic motivator of fear and greed. So this positive motivator of money, which is extrinsic, and the negative motivator of fear, which is extrinsic, but they were also at the same time trying to pretend to have values. On their walls, they had this emblazoned when they went out of business: integrity, communication, respect, and excellence. Those sound like values that would end up in valuing people. And yes, if you did those things, you probably would value people. But that's not what they did. That's not how they acted. It was just sort of a smokescreen for these primary motivational tools that they were using. So people will follow what you do more than your theoretical framework. So what they did was, they initially created a great company. This is the CEO, Jeffrey Silling. And there was another gentleman by the name of Lay, who was the founding partner. And they were consolidating energy companies in Texas. And then they became a trading company, and Jeff Skilling became the master trader of their whole organization. And the key to his success was his clever accounting. He had this way of marking down, he called it mark-to-market accounting. And he would mark down his futures because they were trading in commodities. And they would mark down their future profits and future projection of prices as actually being assets and actual money that they projected that they had already. So this, armed with this funny money accounting technique that was actually backed up by a large accounting firm at the time, they went out to market and they started making millions, and they became darlings of the industry. And they actually used this fear and money techniques to get what they wanted in the governmental world of oversight. And so state after state became dysregulated, and they were in there helping them to get dysregulated, and they were in there bribing and manipulating the markets so that they could corner the markets. And they began to corner the market in California, one of the biggest energy, if not the biggest energy market in the entire United States. And when they had that cornered, they were selling electricities and futures from all over the country that were supposed to make it through the grid to California, but didn't quite make it. And the prices went up, and rolling blackouts went out throughout the state. And that's when questions started being asked, because they, up until then, had used fear to really keep people quiet about their funny money techniques that they were using to overvalue themselves so that they could leverage more finances to pour into these buyouts and to look even bigger than they actually were, and to get more stock value than they actually had. So they used fear to keep people silent. But ultimately that resulted in a toxic culture. When these guys started to come under fire, Kenneth Lay, the chairman, and Jeffrey Skilling and Andrew Fastow, all of these people actually ended up being called into Congress to question what they were doing in their accounting techniques. Arthur Andersen, their major accounting firm, actually almost went out of business because of this. They actually changed their name because of this. I remember coming home from a flight from Europe and seeing an advertisement showing black and white. These are the ethics of Arthur Andersen trying to dig themselves out of this morass that they had created by following these people down the hole of money and fear. So this culture of toxicity ultimately ended in the total demise of the business. They went from billions of dollars of valuation down to zero in 2001. And the whole company came crashing down, and catastrophic outcomes for Jeffrey Skilling. All of this extrinsic pursuit in his own life led him to 24 years in prison, and the loss of all of jobs in the entire company, and the disillusionment of the entire company. So this is a horrible outcome when the leadership of an organization pursues extrinsic motivations exclusively to the interior motivations of valuing people. If they had made their company all about valuing people, creating value for the people that they served with their commodities, the people on their teams, instead of pitting them against one another, they would send them out as a sales team and fire whoever didn't get the contract, and then greatly reward those who did. So that negative and positive push and pull eventually destroyed people within the company and ultimately led to their own destruction as well. So that's a very negative example of why not to use extrinsic motivations. I'm going to tell you a positive story about Luis Urza, the leader of the 33 Chilean miners that were trapped in a mine thousands of feet below the surface in Chile. This happened back in 2010. And Luis was trained by his family and by his teachers to have a lot of integrity and faith and diligence in what he did. And he valued his miners even before he was stuck down in this mine. So he set up a regimen of, let's work here. Let's use, this is the bathroom, this is the place where we're going to eat, and this is how we're going to do this. He organized the men. He rationed the food. He made sure their spirits stayed high. They finally established, after 17 days of being trapped, a little line of communication where they could send notes back and forth with their potential rescuers, and occasionally a video from one of the family members. They would sing, they would play games. He kept their spirits up. He kept them valuing their own lives and the lives of their co-miners down there. And finally, after many, many days of being down there, they were rescued on October 15th, 2010, and they came up one by one in a metal capsule they called the Phoenix. And Luis was the last one to be raised to the surface. And he didn't want accolades for this. He didn't want any special honors. He just wanted people to know that valuing people is worth it. And those men that were around him said that they would follow Luis no matter what, because he was like family to them. And they survived and they endured because he helped them see what was valuable inside of them. So instead of leading people from extrinsic motivations, Luis used internal motivations to help people, keep people strong in the most difficult work situation imaginable. So if you can overcome in a situation like this using intrinsic motivations, imagine what you can unleash with people who are in better circumstances than this. Focusing people on what matters and keeping them focused even in the darkness of the dismal days of work. Because work is always hard at some point in time. And if you can keep that focus, people will follow you to valuing themselves, to valuing others. That's what's so beautiful about intrinsic motivations.